You can't cut the line just because you're old. The clerk's voice cuts through the air, firm, dry. Go back and get a number like everyone else. A few young people chuckle. Others look away. A boy whispers something to his mom, but she tells him to hush. The sound of the ticket machine echoes in the stuffy room. The old man simply lowers his eyes, nods, turns around, and walks to the machine. He presses the button, waits for the paper to print. Number 92. He watches the numbers blink on the digital display. Now serving 15, window 4. What no one there could have guessed was that in just a few moments, 2 official vehicles would pull up to the entrance, and a colonel would step out asking for that very man. In Columbus, Georgia, Leonard Johnson spent every Saturday afternoon in the garage, working on the engine of his old Willys Jeep M38. Original paint, restored leather seats, every bolt tightened by hand. It was the same vehicle he once drove through the roads of Fort Moore, back when he was training 19-year-olds to survive combat. 40 years of active duty, 2 wars, dozens of battles, thousands of recruits. He never married. The Army was his home. Fort Moore, his world. That day, the heat made the sidewalk shimmer, like the ground itself was breathing. Leonard left home early. After parking the car, he walked slowly toward the building, 1 step at a time. He carried 87 years of history on his back, and under his left arm, he held an old leather folder. Inside were the original ownership documents for the Jeep, along with maintenance records signed by sergeants who were no longer alive. He had decided to donate the Jeep to the State Military Museum. But first, he needed to complete the transfer at the DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles. From the outside, the building looked worn and weathered by time. Inside, it felt just the same. Crowded. Dozens of people waiting for too few plastic chairs and a blinking number dispenser in the corner of the reception. Leonard walked in. He didn't notice the sign that said you had to take a number. He headed straight for the counter, like people used to do back when folks talked to each other before pressing buttons. The woman behind the counter, a young clerk in a red blazer, hair tied back and a tired expression, didn't even look up as Leonard approached. She typed rapidly, like every second lost might be docked from her paycheck. Her name was Abby. She'd worked there for 5 years, and developing patience for the elderly wasn't on her list of strengths. "You can't cut the line just because you're old," she snapped, loud and firm, like she was dealing with someone breaking the law. "Go back and get a number like everyone else." A few young people laughed. Others looked away. A boy whispered something to his mother, but she told him to be quiet. The ticket machine clicked loudly in the stuffy room. Leonard lowered his eyes, nodded, turned around, and walked over to the machine. He pressed the button, waited for the slip to print. Number 92. He took his ticket and sat in the last row, next to the trash can. No complaints. His folder rested on his lap. He watched the numbers blink on the screen. Now serving 15, window 4. Time moved slowly. Leonard observed those around him. Tired mothers trying to entertain restless children, impatient teens checking their phones over and over, other seniors like him simply waiting in silence. Each time a number was called, a little stir followed. Someone stood up quickly, grabbed their documents, walked to the counter. Abby kept working without ever looking up. She helped each person with mechanical efficiency, stamping papers, requesting IDs, explaining forms with the weariness of someone who'd repeated the same lines 100 times that day. When customers seemed confused or slow, she'd let out a loud sigh, making sure everyone knew how annoyed she was. Leonard waited there for nearly 3 hours. Now and then, his eyes drifted to the leather folder, as if it held something more precious than just paper. When number 92 was finally called, Leonard rose slowly and made his way to Abby's counter. "What can I help you with?" Abby asked flatly. "I'd like to donate a vehicle to the State Military Museum," Leonard said calmly. "I need to transfer the title." Abby frowned. "Donating a vehicle? That's not common. Do you have all the paperwork?" Leonard opened his folder and carefully pulled out a neatly organized stack of documents. She flipped through the papers like someone casually browsing a flyer. "Sir, all of this is way too old. I need updated versions." Leonard pulled a small slip of paper from his pocket. A reference number from the museum. He tried to explain. She cut him off. "I can't approve any of this without a new digitized report. This is outdated and no longer accepted." Leonard nodded. He didn't argue. "I understand. Oh, you understand. But you didn't bring a single thing I need. That makes things difficult." Her voice was getting louder, impatient. People nearby began to watch. She slid the folder back across the counter. "Come back with the right documents. Next." Up until that moment, most people in the room hadn't even noticed Leonard was there. Except one. A man in uniform standing nearby had seen everything. It was Captain Jennings. He was there for a licensing issue. His number was 90 and he'd been called to the window next to Leonard's. He happened to catch a glimpse over Leonard's shoulder. Military service certificates, vehicle ownership documents, though it wasn't clear what kind of vehicle. And in the corner of a yellowed page, the name, Leonard Johnson, Chief Instructor, Fort Moore. Jennings froze. Fort Moore, the same place he commanded today, the same place where his own father had been trained back in the 70s. Captain Jennings had already finished his appointment, but he couldn't bring himself to leave. Without drawing attention, he pulled out his phone. He called directly to Colonel Ralph Owen's office, the man in charge of statewide military affairs. He spoke quickly, quietly, eyes still on Leonard as he explained everything. Leonard was calmly gathering his documents. His hands trembled slightly. He struggled to slide the papers back in place. The folder slipped from his arm and fell to the floor. No one moved, except Jennings. He'd just ended the call and was still watching. He stepped forward to help Leonard pick up the documents, and just as Leonard turned to return to his seat at the back of the room, Jennings gently took hold of his arm. "Please wait here a moment, sir." Leonard furrowed his brow. "Is something wrong?" Jennings shook his head. "No, quite the opposite." The clerk watched the scene from her desk, skeptical. "Oh, great," she muttered sarcastically. "Now there's a fast track for military folks, too?" Her words echoed through the room. Outside, 2 black government vehicles were pulling into the lot. The first to walk in was Colonel Ralph Owens. Beside him stood a state government aide and 2 active duty soldiers. They all stopped at the doorway, scanned the room. The entire line went silent. The colonel walked toward the counter, each step deliberate. The DMV director rushed over, surprised by the unexpected visit. "How can I help you, sir?" He didn't answer. He just looked around the room. "Where is Mr. Leonard Johnson?" Leonard, still standing near the window, slowly raised his hand. The colonel walked over to him, stopped right in front of him, extended his hand. "It's an honor to meet you, sir." Leonard shook it, confused. "Sorry it took us this long." The director stood by, speechless. The colonel turned to her. "This man is a military legend in the state of Georgia. He trained half the leadership in this region for over 40 years. Many of our current officers learned under him." The clerk who had humiliated Leonard felt her face flush with heat. She tried to step away quietly, but the colonel called her out. "Were you the one who helped Mr. Johnson earlier?" She swallowed hard. "Yes, but You should have learned how to treat an elderly man with respect. If he's here, there's a reason. Make no mistake about that." The silence in the room grew heavier. The director stepped forward and apologized to Leonard directly. She offered to process everything herself. Leonard simply nodded with the same quiet calm as before. The entire donation process was completed in 15 minutes, with the director personally reviewing every document and making sure everything was filed correctly. Colonel Owens took charge of the vehicle transport himself. The next day, an official military tow truck would arrive at Leonard's home to collect the Jeep and deliver it to the museum, where it would receive a full restoration and a bronze plaque. Donated by Leonard Johnson, distinguished instructor and honored citizen. The following week, the museum called to thank him and to let him know the Jeep would be one of the centerpiece exhibits in their new Veterans Hall. But the real change happened in the weeks that followed. The DMV implemented a new protocol for elderly service, with mandatory training for all employees. It ended up reducing wait times for everyone. Captain Jennings himself led a special seminar on recognition and the importance of treating every person with dignity, regardless of how they look or how old they are. It's not about who someone used to be. It's about remembering that every person carries a story. 2 weeks later, Leonard had to return to the DMV to renew his driver's license. He entered through the same glass door, carrying the same worn leather folder. This time, out of habit, he headed straight for the ticket machine. Abby saw him before he even reached it. She stood up from her chair immediately and walked toward him with quick steps, driven by a sense of urgency to correct a mistake that had haunted her for weeks. "Mr. Johnson?" Leonard turned, recognizing her voice. "It would be my pleasure to assist you today," she said. "You don't need to take a number. Please come with me. We now have walk-in service for anyone over 60, and you were one of the first to arrive." He followed her to the counter, where she processed his renewal with special care. She double-checked every detail, asked if he needed any additional services, and treated him with the respect she should have shown from the start. They didn't talk much. Leonard was never a man of many words. When the process was done and Leonard slipped his new license into his shirt pocket, Abby took a deep breath. "Mr. Johnson," she said softly, I want to apologize for what happened before. It wasn't right." Leonard looked her in the eye. He saw genuine regret. He saw someone who had learned something important about herself and about others. "We all make mistakes," he said simply. "What matters is learning from them." As he headed toward the exit, Abby called out one last time, "Mr. Johnson, thank you for teaching me something that matters. I still have a lot to learn in this life." He paused, turned back, and gave a small nod. A quiet gesture, no bitterness, no pride. Just the gesture of a man who had learned over 87 years that true greatness doesn't need to be announced, and that forgiveness heals not just the one who receives it, but the one who offers it. Sometimes, all it takes is a moment of recognition, to remind us that every person carries a story, and there, amid the constant motion of a city quick to forget, someone had been remembered. And maybe that's all we're really looking for in the end. Not a ceremony, just a simple gesture from someone who looks at you and says, "You matter, and it's my duty to show you respect." If you enjoyed this story, let us know in the comments. Have you ever felt disrespected in your life? Share your experience with us below. And don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss what's coming next.